Hi, welcome everybody. Today we are going to be cooking 4 prime fillets from Costco. As you can see, these are absolutely beautiful, very well marbled pieces of meat, and one I'm looking forward to. I don't typically eat filet. I am much more of a ribeye or a New York strip guy. However, I got a good look at the marbling in the store and realized I had to take the plunge. So here we are. This is right before we place these into the oven to get them up to temperature. We put a good coat of kosher salt and pepper and made sure we covered both sides, and as well as those beautiful fat edges that we see there. So I've just put these in a basic metal cooking pan and setting it into the toaster oven at just 205 degrees. The idea is we want this to get slowly up to temperature, target between 115 and 125, and then we'll go ahead and do a quick sear. So here we are, and you can see I dump a very liberal amount of peanut oil into my cast iron pan that I'm going to let get screaming hot, and now we're ready to sear some fillets. So here we are with the first one, and the technique I'm going to do here is it's really a matter of personal preference, but I particularly like to sear the sides of the steak, so that way that's taken care of, and then I will sear the front and the reverse side of the steak. So I'm just going to go through here and sear off all of the different sides of each of these steaks. And the sort of a nice thing here is after we've exposed the fillets to that hot oil, it's going to have a chance to rest and to have the temperature even out a little bit, and before we go ahead and sear off the main sides. So as I mentioned, I put a lot of peanut oil into the cast iron, and notice how I am moving the steak around. And so the idea here is to constantly introduce new hot oil to the sides of the steak. Now, you'll hear from a lot of people like, hey, you got to set the steak down and don't touch it, don't move it. I think that's actually poor advice. What I've gotten the best and most consistent results with is by moving the steak around and exposing it to as much hot oil as I can to get the best sear in the least amount of time. And you really want to try to limit how much time you spend searing, because you are at great risk of overcooking your steak. That's especially the case here with fillets. Typically, a New York strip or a good ribeye is going to be a little bit more forgiving in terms of cooking it. But the issue with the fillet is it is the most tender cut of steak, but it also typically has the least amount of intermuscular fat. And really what that means is your window between undercooking and overcooking the steak is a lot tighter than it is for a strip or a ribeye. A strip or ribeye is going to have a lot more intermuscular fat, and as that renders, your steak is going to come up to temperature a little bit more slowly, and so you have some more room for error. Here with the fillets, my approach is really just sort of get in, get out, get the sear done, let it rest, and move forward, because fillets are very easy to overcook, and I'd argue they're the most challenging cuts of meat to cook correctly. So there we are, just continuing to work the sides, introduce lots of hot oil to each side. And what I've done now is I've had the cast iron on at really screaming hot max gas temperature, and I turn that down from high to about medium high, and I've introduced a couple of tablespoons of butter. The idea is to help facilitate that Maillard process and get that good golden, crunchy brown on the sides of the steak. But the reason we turn this down is if you put in your butter at too high of a temperature, the butter will immediately blacken, and your steak is going to look black like charcoal. I've done that before, and it's not exactly an appealing sight. I mean, really, what you're looking for is that deep brown, that deep dark wood type of color on your steak. And so what I've done here is I've flipped this a couple times, again, very quickly, and now we're moving on to basting. And so the baste is sort of a high power move to sear. You're getting all of that hot oil and butter into the little crevices of the steak, and this is the type of thing you by all means baste, but don't overdo it, because what you'll end up doing is overcooking too much. We're getting a thick level of gray band, and that is going to make for a less tasting and a less aesthetically pleasing product. So back at it, again, moving the steak, constantly introducing that hot, fresh oil, and getting that good sear. Again, the idea: get in, get out, make that sear happen. And so just one side, just probably 20 to 30 seconds each side, and then we're going to baste probably half a dozen, maybe 10 times or so here. Just get that hot oil all over the place, get it in all those little cracks and crevices, and do the same for the other side. And again, get in, get out, get that steak off of the cast iron lest you overcook it and ruin an $18 a pound cut of prime filet. Certainly we don't want that to happen. And so you can see this process is going fairly quickly. I mean, that's 2 down right now, especially once we got the sides seared. Here we are with adding another fresh couple tablespoons of butter, again, to assist with that caramelization, that Maillard process, where the natural sugars in the beef will caramelize. We want that deep dark wood brown kind of color happening. So with that butter, with that freshly infused butter, we're continuing to agitate the steak, and same process as what we've done for the other two. We are getting there and ever closer to enjoying some very, very tasty filet. Last step with here, filet number 3. Get the good baste, again, 5, 10, 11, 12 times. But certainly don't overdo it. You don't want to overcook your filet. You don't want that gray band in your steak that whenever you post it to Facebook, people are going to have fun with you in the comments. So one side is done basting, another quick basting of the other side. And I mentioned earlier I used a ton of peanut oil, and then also with the butter. And then the other benefit of having a lot of fat in the pan is it makes that baste that much easier. Last couple tablespoons of butter. So if you've been keeping score at home, that is going to be an entire stick of butter in the cast iron pan, along with probably half a cup of peanut oil. To me, that's just simply the price of doing business. And again, to introduce that new hot oil to every crack and crevice on that beautiful cut of meat. So here we're just agitating the second side of the filet, and we are going to prepare to baste this guy. And if I recalled, as I was doing this, I got a couple good splashes of hot oil up on my hand. Again, just sort of the price of doing business. Nothing too bad or too painful, but it's just a reminder of you are working with some very hot oil that can easily burn you if you're not careful. So here we are working the basting once again, and this guy is ready to go. And the last thing I'm doing here is this steak. Out of an abundance of caution, I noticed there was a bit of one of the sides that maybe didn't get quite the sear I wanted, and so I just put it in there another 5-10 seconds aside. And here we are with the end results. And again, an outstanding deep dark brown sear, one I'm particularly proud of. And the moment of truth, and there's a good up close shot. The moment of truth is coming up here whenever we're going to cut into this and see if I was able to achieve a good sear while having a good interior. And that, my friends, is truly an elite interior. The hallmark of a great interior for a steak is pink, edge to edge, and no gray band. So with that, I'd like to thank you for tuning into this video, and stay tuned for more. Feel free to subscribe to my channel. Bye.